Welcome to Cougarcast. I'm Heather Darrow, and our guest today is award-winning author Brando Skyhorse. Welcome, Brando. Brando grew up in Echo Park, California. He later earned degrees from Stanford University and from the MFA Writers Program at UC Irvine. His first novel, The Madonnas of Echo Park, received the 2011 Penn Hemingway Award and the Sue Kaufman Prize for First Fiction from the American Academy of Arts and Letters. The book was also a Barnes & Noble Discover Great New Writers pick. Take This Man, a memoir, was Amazon's best book of the month, selected and named by Kirkus Reviews as one of the best nonfiction books of the year. Brando has also co-edited an anthology, We Wear the Mask, 15 stories about passing in America. He's also been awarded fellowships at UCross Foundation and the Breadloaf Writers Conference. Currently, Brando is an associate professor of English at Indiana University in Bloomington. Brando is visiting Collin College today as part of the Book in Common program. Students and community members have read his book, Take This Man, a Memoir.
That was a lovely introduction, Heather. Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here. Yeah.
Brando, your book takes readers on this amazing journey. There's so many twists and turns.
I know, right? Sorry.
When I first read it, I had a hard time believing that it was real. Mm-hmm. It seemed like it was fiction. What do you have to say about that?
Well, I wish I could say it was fiction too. It would have made it a lot easier for me growing up. But no, it was a memoir. And for me, memoir is about transformation and change. And when people ask me what the book is about, I tell them that it's the story of a young boy who, when he was 3 years old, was told that he was one thing. And in this case, I was told that I was an American Indian. And then learned over a period of years that that one truth was actually a series of lies. And what are the consequences of those lies? And what are the consequences of being a person who's told that you're one thing and then having to learn that you're something else and then having to go out and find that identity for myself?
I can't imagine how challenging that must have been.
It certainly was. It certainly was.
So what was the hardest scene for you to write in this book?
Well, there are a number of challenging scenes because in order for a memoir to work, you have to have authenticity. And I think it was important that I demonstrated to students that, my mother was a complicated person. So there are scenes of emotional trauma, emotional abuse, physical abuse. But I also wanted to demonstrate to readers that my mother was an actual human being that was in pain. So there was a scene near the end where I talk about my mother's passing and trying to imagine what those moments were like. And I could have written in a very angry and bitter and petulant way, but it was important for me to demonstrate that I had empathy and compassion and humanity for my mother. And it took a lot of time to get there, to be honest. But once I got there, it felt like, oh, this is the scene. This feels right. And I think my readers who've read that, they've responded and say, yeah, the fact that you could have been angry with your mother, but instead you chose a different path. And readers respond to that. That demonstrates learning.
Okay. This book took you years to edit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Years. Can you tell me about what changed?
Yeah, it took approximately about 18 years from 1996 to 2014 to write and put together. And essentially, two processes happened, is that I was learning more about the story, and as I was getting older, I was transforming myself. So it wasn't only just a process of editing, but also documenting that change and documenting that sense of transformation in myself. In the same way that, if you were to write about your own experiences when you were in your 20s and how you felt about your parents then versus now you might feel in your 30s, or now I'm in my 40s, it's a different process. So while, I wouldn't recommend everyone take 18 years to write a book, it certainly made it a much stronger book, and a book that was filled with a lot more compassion and a lot more grace and a lot more humanity, because I wasn't writing from a place of petulance or anger. That's the part I got rid of, because nobody wants to read that.
Okay. What do you hope that readers will take away from this fabulous book that you wrote?
Yeah, I grew up with books, and I know that people often have different relationships with books, and I think especially now people get a lot of their narratives from social media or other places. But I hope that they get a sense of hope and empathy and compassion and understanding. I think that we learn more as people when we give empathy to people who we often feel are least deserving of it. And if they can take away that message, I would be really happy.
That's wonderful. Are you working on a new book?
I am working on a new book. It's a novel. It's about contemporary issues, and I'll just leave it at that, just nice and broad. But no more memoirs because they are the hardest thing to write. So anyone looking for part 2, that's not going to happen, but I'll happily be writing a novel back in Bloomington. So look out for that, hopefully in a couple of years.
We look forward to reading it.
Thank you.
It was a privilege to have the opportunity to speak with you today. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Heather.
See you next time on Cougarcast.